I want to bring in former federal prosecutor and the president of West Coast Trial Lawyers, Neama Rahmani. Also here, civil rights attorney here in Minneapolis, Katie Bennett. Glad to have both of you here. Katie, let me begin with you here because use of force is a phrase that people are going to hear throughout the course of this investigation. It will be essentially the investigation. Describe to me what that term really looks like for the purpose of an investigation.
Right. So for purposes of civil rights investigation, you're looking at that from an objective, reasonable standard. The officer's subjective intent does not matter. His view isn't relevant. And I think what's important here with regard to the use of force is that none of the other agents even drew their weapons. So you have one shooter, other officers that are exposed to this allegedly dangerous woman and conduct on her behalf who didn't unholster their weapons and never did. And I think that's going to be a key factor here.
So the objective reasonableness through the eyes of other officers or everyday people? How is that standard deployed?
It's a reasonable officer at the scene under the totality of the circumstances faced there.
So those officers are going to be very important thinking about that as well, Neama. I mean, Trump issued an executive order, Neama, just last year on policing, which ordered the AG, the Attorney General, to, quote, provide legal resources and indemnification to law enforcement officers who are accused of wrongdoing. So walk me through how that order might impact this investigation.
Well, Laura, you better believe that there's going to be a civil rights lawsuit on behalf of Good's family. So there's no question. That's a simple negligence standard, and that's just about money. But obviously, there may be a criminal prosecution as well. I can tell you that there's no way this Department of Justice is going to prosecute this ICE officer in today's political climate. But that doesn't mean that state prosecutors can't. And like Katie talked about, when you talk about self-defense, it's something that applies both in the civil and criminal context. It's a complete defense if it's objectively reasonable. If it's unreasonable, then that's the basis for civil liability, paying money, or potential manslaughter charges. And Minnesota is also unique in that they have imperfect self-defense. If that ICE agent genuinely but unreasonably believed that he was in imminent risk of death or serious bodily injury, and that's why he shot, that's manslaughter under Minnesota law. And of course, Minnesota makes it even more complicated because they also have third-degree depraved heart murder as well. So there's a lot of different possibilities here if you start parsing the homicide statutes there in Minnesota.
Given the Derek Chauvin trial, the community here well-versed in the different levels of actions and causes of action. And yet this distinction we're talking about, Katie, between a criminal prosecution potentially, whether that may or may not happen, and civil rights-based litigation, is there a difference in terms of how the investigation would unfold then if the eye is not towards prosecution, but instead to a civil rights case brought not on behalf of the government, but by the family themselves?
No, I think we're going to all be looking for the same types of evidence, right? There's some that we know here today from the video evidence available to us as we, are talking. And then there's some that we don't know, probably some additional video that'll be helpful. The autopsy and forensic results of that will be important. The training and things like that the ICE officers received or didn't receive is all going to be important. So I think we're going to be, both sides will be honing in on some of the same key pieces of evidence.
What does discovery look like? Obviously, transparency is a word I'm hearing a lot of. The community talking about accountability. Transparency could involve, Neama, the idea of identifying who the ICE officer is. Certainly, if there is a civil rights lawsuit filed, it would include knowing who that person would be as a plaintiff or a defendant in an action. So does transparency, will that be impacted by which route is taken?
Well, certainly when that civil lawsuit is filed, the plaintiffs will be able to conduct discovery. And Really, the best discovery in this case, Laura, is the video. We've seen obviously the 2 videos from the rear of the vehicle. We've seen the one from the front that's farther away. Really, the shooting ICE agent's body cam video, that's going to be by far and away the most important. We have not seen it. That ICE agent will be named as a defendant and will be identified in the lawsuit. And some of the things Katie talked about is really the reasonableness, right? And once we get that video, we're going to see, was it reasonable for him to position himself in front of this vehicle? Was it reasonable for him to use deadly force? Again, you can't use deadly force just to shoot someone who's fleeing, even if they're a fleeing felon. You have to arrest them. That's what judges and juries are for. You can't allow our police officers, whether state, federal, local, to be judges, juries, and executioners. That's why that body cam footage is going to be the dispositive footage in this case. Was that officer hit? When did he pull his weapon? And why did he shoot? Those mere microseconds, they're going to matter, Laura.
Katie, we're talking about one ICE officer, but you heard Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, describing that he was following training. Is there a discussion to be had about a larger investigation into the training apparatus or even the agency itself?
I certainly, as a civil rights attorney, would be interested in that for sure. And some of the video footage shows some amateurish actions on behalf of the officers. For example, the contradictory commands that they're giving to the individual in the vehicle, right? Some are telling her to leave, some are telling her to get out of the car. Which one is she to obey? That and some of the other actions that we've seen, it shows that there's some questions about the training that they have received and the qualifications.
Neama Rahmani, Katie Bennett, thank you both.
Thanks, Laura.